Let me see.
Okay, I see it.
Is it coming? I think
It
I
said
think we're
it said
good.
recording started.
There's the red line. There's the red light. Yes, this is 3 yards per carry. I'm afraid Arteaga. Chris Kaufman is here with me. Simon Clancy's not here with me because he's doing something much better. He's in Rome.
That's a lot better.
Yeah. Although I think he's ignoring me because I told him send food pics, and I don't know if he thought that I was joking or something about that.
I think you thought you were joking.
He thinks
I
I
don't
was
think.
joking.
Yeah, I don't think. I don't think he's as. He's. Yeah, he's not. He's not into the whole food porn thing. I
Yeah.
guess.
But my God, you're in Rome. Like
I would.
that's the
I mean,
capital of food porn, isn't it? Either there or Japan. Like okay,
I'd be
let's
all
start.
over the place with it.
Let's start the show there. What are the capitals of food porn? Obviously, Rome and Japan are number 1 and number 2, right? Madrid's in the top 5.
I mean, are we talking about like cities? Are we talking about countries or what?
Pretty
Because
food. Pretty food.
oh, pretty food. I
Pretty
mean,
and good food.
you have Madrid over Barcelona.
Barcelona's too modern.
Too modern.
It's
All
like
right.
cleaner Miami.
I think the food in Barcelona is just ridiculous. Rome is Rome has to be a good one, but I've eaten in Florence and that was pretty phenomenal too. So um, there's probably just a lot of places in Italy. I don't know. So we'll start with what are the best food cities in the in the U.S. You know, one of the older ones I was and I don't think this is just because it was my first experience with you know, as so young with a really good food town, but like DC was a food town before a lot of other places became a food town. You know, and I thought I always appreciated that. You know, because now Tampa has come up quite a bit that way, but DC I think for sure, New York. But Japan, virtually everything that you can get there. Yeah.
I'll give you a city in the United States that's extremely, because I'm trying to think of the city. I'm trying to look up the city. It's in Mississippi.
Biloxi?
No, not Biloxi. Biloxi's too commercial. I'm
Too
trying to look at the
commercial.
name. I forgot the name, and I'm looking at a map now to find
Oh,
Meridian,
okay.
Mississippi.
I've been through it.
There's basically no bad food in the entire city. And if you like that kind of thing, if you like Southern food,
If
you
you
like
like
soul
that.
food, you know.
Of course, you live in
Southern,
Miami, so you know
yeah,
there's something to be said there.
yeah. Miami's very diverse. Like you get pretty much anything here,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So yeah, pretty damn good food.
Best
If you,
countries though, you know what? There was a thing that went around and it broke down like from a center point like the entire globe into like A B C D E F, you know, whatever.
mm-hmm.
And there was one that had like my entire Uber Eats backlog or order log is in there. I had, you know, everything from Southeast Asia to Japan to, you know, and even Turkish food and Middle Eastern food and just basically everything. And it's kind of amazing that there's like one little sliver where I eat I eat almost exclusively from.
Peru's also great. Costa
Really?
Rica, yeah, Peru's food is awesome.
Haven't been a big salty papa scotting guy.
Yeah, Costa Rica really good. Now the thing about Costa
Mm.
Rica is how organic everything is.
Oh, okay.
Like if you look at a chicken in Costa Rica, they look weird because they look like pigeons, and you're like, "What's wrong with your chickens?" And
If I
it's the
had
other way around. It's what's wrong with our chickens. You
if I
know,
had a nickel, if I had a nickel for every time I've looked at a chicken in Costa Rica.
you look at a chicken in Costa Rica, and you're like, "What in the fuck is that thing?" And then you're like, "You know what? It probably tastes a lot better than our chickens because they're not pumped up with all kinds of uh, steroids and whatnot to fatten them up." And sure enough, they do taste great. So does pork. Like the animals in Costa Rica, they look normal. They don't look like American animals.
I feel like there could be an epic tale about the great chicken of Costa Rica.
Yeah, the great pig of Costa Rica.
Now
Very
that's more like
lean,
it. That's
very
more like it.
lean. But I know why why our pigs are fat in the United States, right? They make them fatty to produce more bacon, more lard, right?
Bacon.
If you're growing them in your backyard, if you're growing them in a farm, you don't
Mm-hmm.
care about most of those things. You care about eating them when they're ready to go. And in Costa Rica, that's pretty much what they do. They don't they don't mass produce their animals. Let's just say that. And of course, the fruit's
Last
great.
last bit on the food thing. I will say that I just went to a new place that opened up here that ended up being a lot higher class than I thought. Um, but it is Italian Japanese,
Wow.
and it was, I mean, it was knock you out good. Like it was pretty incredible. But they say like Italian with Japanese sensibilities or something like
Mm.
that. And actually, it reminded me of, like, remember like the old Iron Chef,
Yeah.
like the Iron. Remember there was like an Iron Chef Italian.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's basically that. We went to Morimoto's in Vegas together. You and
And
I.
it was great. That place
Yeah,
was great, right? It was a really, really nice place.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
speaking of Iron Chef.
Yeah. There's a place down here called Amazonia, and
Hmm.
they're Brazil Asian fusion.
Mm,
So that should be pretty good.
nice.
Anyways, let's get on with the show.
Oh, we
As
have a game this
always,
week.
yep. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
800 pain. Okay. Let me see. Why is that not coming on? And there
Oh,
it is.
there.
305 800 pain. Just like the Dolphins, they inflict a lot of pain. After an accident, your first move should be to call 305 800 pain. Better Business Bureau accredited with an A+ rating. Your car accident personal injury specialist. Fast connections with trusted doctors and attorneys. Always ready to take your call 24/7. Again, 305 800 pain. 305 800 pain. And just as a side, Govee, who is the official lighting sponsor of the
Right.
Miami Dolphins,
Mm-hmm.
has gifted us with 3 pairs of tickets for Ravens Dolphins on the 30th. That's a Thursday night football game. And we will be giving them away exclusively on our Discord OnlyFans. And if you want to become a member of our Discord OnlyFans, you could go right there, right under my name. You see it?
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Discord.gg/OnlyFans. You become a member there. All access for $4.99 a month. Do it on a desktop to avoid the Apple upcharges. All right, Chris. I said something. I don't think it was kind of profound. It was kind of clickbaity-ish on Discord. I said the real dumpster fire or get right game is actually this week and not last week. I think personally, I thought that you called it a trap game. Absolutely, we have absolute god awful guards, and we went up against maybe
Yeah.
a top 5 defensive tackle pairing,
Mm-hmm.
and that completely short circuited our entire run game. Made a huge difference
Because
in
they
the
had
game.
no business stopping our run game based on what they were doing. I think, from a personnel standpoint and the way that they were playing. I don't think they had any business stopping our run game, and they did. And of course, Miami has, you know, all of the commitment of of Elizabeth Taylor when it comes to the run game. So yeah, they had no business stopping it. So it truly was one of those things. It's like, they were able to do a lot with a little.
Yeah. And if you flip the script and you move on to the Chargers this week, the defensive tackles this week are not what they faced last week. They're
Mhm.
actually 2 very familiar faces. It's Deshaun Hand and Tier Tart. Two,
Very
two,
familiar faces.
two former. By the way, Tier Tart and okay, PFF. I hear you. Okay, I know you like some of our players, like you love Patrick Paul, like he's your bay. But Tier Tart being the best interior defensive lineman in all of football, okay, that's good. Okay, if you're grading him as, and they do, he is, as per PFF, the number one interior defensive lineman in all of football. So Tier Tart should absolutely destroy us on
You know,
Sunday.
but here's the thing: like when you watched him play, when he was even before he took anything with us, right? Preseason or whatever. Um, that guy, he doesn't have a good motor, so that's one thing. Don't expect him to chase plays around. Um, then again, we don't have a guy who will force you to chase people around, right? In terms of the quarterback. So he doesn't have a good motor, and I think that was the thing that really fit or did not fit in Miami. Otherwise, why did you cut him? He ends up like the top defensive tackle the next year. In how is that not I mean, listen, we both kind of take the PFF thing with a grain of salt sometimes.
Yeah.
But how is that not an extraordinarily embarrassing thing to have happen to you? That you brought him to camp along with a bunch of other dudes, and now what are we struggling with this year?
Yeah, and I'll go a step further. We talked about this, and you took the other side on this. So I'm not
Yeah.
really calling you out on this, but it's I guess you took the opposite side of it. But I was more like the comfortable shoe, Deshaun Hand. I'm like, why wouldn't you bring back Deshaun Hand and just throw him into your rotation? And that's a guy that
Well,
was
now I'm missing
fine.
him.
Yeah, sure enough, right? And what was it over? $500,000
Oh
maybe,
God,
because
if that, right?
it's barely nothing.
Yeah.
So personally, I would have said, yeah, you know what? Just bring that guy back, and you know, for a rainy day, it's kind of like when you're making a charcuterie board and you know that there's a cheddar that you really really like. Are you just gonna walk into Aldi's and say, you know what, that weird ass cheddar right there? I'm gonna replace the cheddar I really like with that one. And then you serve it, and you're like, this is not good. I made a mistake here. Well, I think that they made the mistake on their charcuterie board on the interior defensive line by you could bypass Benito Jones. It's okay. Don't offer Benito the contract. Offer it to Deshaun Hand.
That I
You
do
know.
get, like that I and I would have approved of that because I didn't necessarily approve of bringing Benito back. So I think that between the two of them, to me, like Deshaun Hand was just kind of just a guy in our system, and I wanted to do better than that. Obviously, we haven't, because the young players haven't come along yet, and so that's one thing. But we're missing him now. We would appreciate having that extra body right now. Like, I'm sure that Deshaun Hand could be taking Zeke Bigger's spot on the roster, but actually playing, so that we don't have to rely so much on two rookies. And I don't dislike Jordan Phillips. A lot of people get like their backup when you say that the two rookies have their mistakes, because Jordan Phillips is having some flashes. But they're rookies and they're doing the wrong things a lot of the time. And so you wouldn't have to rely on that. You could let them come along in background instead of in the foreground. And that's unfortunate. We're not there yet. But it's more curious to me about Tier Tart, to me, because they cut him. I mean, they didn't even keep him last year, right? Deshaun Hand played last year, right? They didn't even keep Tier Tart last year. And they're just like, nope, we don't think you're good. We don't think you fit. Neville Gallimore went out and played somewhere else too.
Yeah.
But that's a little bit, to be the number one graded defensive tackle on PFF after that. That, to me, that's a little bit, but that's shades of
Yeah.
Evan Mathis.
It also didn't help that Neville Gallimore went on national television and had a 2.5 sack forced fumble game.
Didn't help at all, did it?
No, it did not help. And
Yeah.
what Neville Gallimore was going to give you, right? But it wasn't good enough. Like, okay, he's not going to be stout as a 3 tech or as a 1 shade. Like, he's not going to do that. That's not what he does. He's going to rush the passer. as a 3 tech, as a 5 tech. That's what he's going to do. And that sure would have helped a little bit last year, and it
Well,
could
it
help
would help
now.
this year. Anything would help this year, I think, just to have to rely a little bit less on those rookies.
But here's where I'm going with all this, because we're talking about when the Dolphins have the football, they're facing a defense that, if you look at that roster, it's getting better. They got your
Hmm.
boy from the Ravens,
Hmm.
who was kind of quiet to start his career, has come on, had a big season last year. Quiet again this year, and maybe that's why they traded him. He's asking for money, I believe, and that's why he's no
The
longer a
former, the
Raven.
former, the formerly Jason Owe,
Yeah,
now
now
Odafe Owe,
Odafe or Odafe,
Odafe, I think.
Odafe. But if you look at that roster and you look at our roster, yeah, their secondary
Hmm.
is much better than ours because they have capable players. Like, I like Dante Jackson, you
That
know.
would be the primary reason for a secondary to be better than
But
ours
my God,
is that they have capable players.
yeah, in the secondary, right? And Derwin James is a stud. But my God,
Yeah.
if we do a front seven draft,
Hmm.
it gets ugly for the Chargers. But they got Jesse Mentor. He's getting them to play. I think if we're gonna lay out a game plan for the Dolphins, last week we said run on first down successfully, don't turn it over, and that should be enough. They didn't run the ball successfully on first down when they averaged less than a yard per carry in the entire second half.
And then they stopped. Period.
Yeah, I think we're back to that, right? They got to run successfully on first down. If they don't, you don't want Jesse Minter reaching into his bag against your offense. You don't mind Tua against pretty much any defensive coordinator on third
Yeah.
and four, third and five. He's actually pretty damn good. I think he's
Hmm.
second in the league, converting third downs and third and five or less.
Hmm.
So you got to be successful on first down, because that's the ball game. If you're not, correct.
Yeah. I mean, this is. But listen, this is rinse and repeat territory.
Mm.
When are the Dolphins going to actually do it? And when are they going to push through the the first sign of adversity in the run game? Because that's what they don't do,
Mm.
right? We know that if they're okay, they're gained like 2 yards here, 3 yards there, something like that. But then and then maybe a 0 yard there, and it's like, man, okay, that's 3 carries. We're not really, it's not going yet. It's not going yet.
Mm.
And then they take a 3 yard loss or something like that. As they're the most prolific team to take lost yardage on run plays in the last 4 years. Um, they take one of those, and then it's like, okay, that's it. Fuck it. We're not we're not doing this anymore. And then they won't do it for the rest of the game. And that's kind of their problem. Or they will do it for the rest. They will do it at some point in the game, but it becomes like kind of the most obvious points in the game of like, oh yeah, now we're comfortable, so let's try and reestablish. What they do is they make it easy to key
Mm.
on the ground game. Like for an offensive guy and Mike McDaniel who lives off of run pass conflict, like that's shocking. You know,
Mm.
that's shocking that when they run the ball is so predictable.
You know how
For a guy like
predictable it
that.
was that their most brilliant play of the entire game, where Mike McDaniel can actually take credit for, is that 46-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Waddle. You
Mhm.
know why that pass comes off? Because you're
Well,
out
first
there in
off, they were
20
in 22 personnel, right?
you're in 22 personnel, and these
Mhm.
guys run out base against you and load
Mhm.
up the box, and Jalen Waddle just runs past their secondary. Simple as that.
Which they, by the way, they did not do like they didn't do that frequently. They didn't, and so they got burned for it like that one time. And it's really weird because like for a lot of the game they'd march out nickel against 22,
Mm,
and we
mm.
passed on it anyway. you know and
Yeah.
and so like it was really interesting that but that was it. They were playing tendencies, and I think that it probably was a very smart play call, because based on how they were playing our tendencies, down distance and field position, so and such, we probably predicted that this is what they would do. on defense, even if we came out in 22 personnel and burned them for it, burn their ass, you know. So occasionally there's definitely those brilliant play calls. Um,
Mm.
but I think that there's a lot more to question as well.
Last thing on this, when the Dolphins have the football, we're on that part of the show right now.
Mm-hmm.
Darren Waller, obviously, he's noticeable, and he had a great game against, a great half against the Carolina Panthers. Although, if you watch the All 22, there's some stuff there in the second half too that
Yeah.
you almost want Tua to break the huddle, thinking Darren Waller, no matter what, you know, and that would have been just fine by me on a few of those routes. Derwin James has played against Travis Kelce for what seems like 40, 50 times already, and their game plan is pretty simple. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
like to man up Derwin James against Travis Kelce pretty often, and that's twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be as simple as that? Darren Waller beat this guy. By the way, they used to butt heads before in that
Yeah.
division when I believe Derwin James as a rookie and second year player faced Darren Waller and when he was with the Raiders. So that's going to be a matchup as
It,
well.
it, it
And
is, but it depends on how that, because tight ends. It's never simple how you actually defend a tight end, because it's never as simple unless you're in Brian Flores' defense or something like that, where they really will just like put Eric Rowe on you all day or
mhm,
something, along those lines. Um, it's never easy because it's never one thing. It's never Derwin James just constantly covering the guy or something like that. It could be, and if it is, then it'll be really interesting to see what Darren Waller does, because at that point you start to question, okay, well, how old is he? He just came out of retirement a year ago. Is he
mhm,
going to beat those guys, a guy like that, man to man? Because the strength that I say on the all 22, the reason he's so impressive, and I think that there's a lot more run to be had with him in the passing game, is because of his savvy.
mhm,
It's because of his knowledge, and it's because of it's because he knows where to go, and he knows how to use space to get open, and he knows how to, he knows exactly the creases and the soft spots. And there's a fourth down. I really wish I'd gotten a chance to break it down on Twitter or something like that. That fourth down conversion that he had was,
mhm,
I thought, really impressive. It was not only impressive schematically in terms of the play call and things like that, but it was impressive really in the execution. And this is why it's such a shame that he got here. He signed in July, and then we didn't see him for however many months, right?
mhm,
Because all of that time he could have been spending, based on the high IQ play that I see on all 22, if this guy had been working with Tua the entire time, this like the offense would literally have a different dimension to it.
mhm,
And it probably could have been a lot more productive to this point in the season, um, based on just pure chemistry between those two. Think of the chemistry that Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes have together.
mhm,
I mean, it's kind of legendary. What you see in Darren Waller on tape is a guy who has the potential to do that. He has the
mhm,
potential to have that sort of chemistry and be on the same page with a quarterback in that way. I don't think they necessarily are. I noticed they got off to super fast start, which is promising. Even
mhm,
he hadn't played at all, and then all of a sudden, bam, there he is, 2 touchdowns. So I think that as you go, that could add like a serious dimension to the offense. I mean, it's legit. I mean, we've panned that addition a lot on this show, and between Simon and I especially. And I think that that's something that, until he did actually play, it was embarrassing. But now that he's playing, you got to call it for what it is. This is what it looks like on the all 22. This is what he is, and he
mhm,
could be a very powerful weapon for Miami. The real question is, as they bump him into 21 personnel or 11 personnel, like on non-passing downs, um, what's going to happen to his body, his unretired, kind of old body that already, as soon as he came back, he got a quad strain, or
mhm,
whatever they want to call it. So if they start bumping him up into those single tight end, those lone, him being the lone tight end, the real Y, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How's his body going to react to that? That's a real question. And unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if they did bump up his snap counts and usage that way, and almost immediately his body breaks down because of it's possible, but at this point, you're not saving anything for the return trip. You're 1-4.
Yeah.
So you use them until you lose them.
Yeah. No, and Tua had a pretty good quote on his availability this week when he said, when you're out there, he looks different because he's bigger than everybody else. So he's easy to spot in the offense.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I completely agree with you. They're going to have to get everybody involved in this game. And Jalen Waddle, look, I understand like his EPA wasn't Tyreek Hill levels, but they got to resist this urge of your turn, my turn, and just let it play out in the flow of the offense. And Jalen Waddle's going to be just fine. I really do believe so. If there's a guy who I absolutely trust, if he is healthy, I think Jalen Waddle is that 1,200, 1,300 yard receiver on this team. And why I would not spend a high asset or a high draft pick on another wide receiver next year. I really wouldn't.
But you ever notice, Alf, that for some reason we have to run between extremes? Like what did Tua have before the Mike McDaniel era, right? All he had were big, tall targets who couldn't get open to save their lives, right? Everything is a jump ball. Everything is, everything has to be a contested catch. And it was big targets too, right? It was Devontae Parker. That's a big target. It's Mike Gesicki. That's a big target. Go back, remember Preston Williams. And, it was big targets, but it was guys who couldn't get open, right? Fast forward to Mike McDaniel, and it's an immediate switch to a bunch of Smurfs out there playing Speedy Gonzalez. And they get open, but man, are they tiny. And it's like, why do we always have to go through such extremes with Tua? Can't you just like kind of have a good middle at some point?
Mesh it all together. Yeah. Mesh it all together.
Why don't you just go for like something not so, sided and actually just try and run something normal for once. But that's, and it makes you wonder if, Tua is just delighted to have a big target like that.
Yeah.
And which
all right.
I'm sure he is.
We're going to go to break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the defense, unfortunately. Yeah, we have to. But let me tell you about Underdog. Underdog Fantasy. Football season is in full swing, and Underdog is the best place to get in on all the action. Playing on Underdog, it's easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right. You can win up to 5,000 times your cash. Now, tonight, I am digging Hurts lower than 196.5 passing yards. Dart higher than 175.5 passing yards. And I like Saquon Barkley to score at any time in this game. And if you've been following my picks, I've hit 3 in a row. So ride me a 4th week. So download the app today and sign up with the promo code 3yards. That's a promo code 3yards, the number 3 yards, to score $100 in bonus funds or bonus entries when you play your first $5. That's the promo code 3yards. Underdog, make picks, win money.
Be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
And of course, we're brought to you by Factor. They're back with us, and they will be with us for the duration of the football season. Fall always feels like a reset, just like football, and just like the Miami Dolphins from time to time, every 3 years. I'm jumping the gun there a little bit. Like we only do these resets like every 3 years. It's not like it's every year on this team.
Buddy,
So
I have foreseen this reset since Tua knocked himself out against the Bills last year.
So more variety, more meals. Choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. Savor global favorite flavors. For the first time, try Asian-inspired meals with bold flavors influenced by China, Thailand, and more. For more choices to better nutrition, that's why 97% of customers say the Factor helped them live a healthier life. Feel the difference. No matter your routine, I am a customer, by the way. So eat smart at factormeals.com/3yards50 off and use the code 3yards50 off. That's the number 3yards50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code 3yards50 off at factormeals.com. Get delicious, ready to eat meals delivered with Factor. Offer only valid for new Factor customers with code and qualifying auto renewing subscription purchases. And we are back. All right, we got to talk about this defense. I've watched a lot of Charger football, and when healthy, and drink. That's a thing we say around here for the Dolphins as well. When completely healthy, they have one of the best offensive lines in football. They have a sledgehammer run game. They have a quarterback that can get to play action. And I don't think his weapons are that bad anymore, especially since Quentin Johnston now remembered how to play football. Keenan Allen's back there, and we all know Ladd McConkey's a hell of a player. Now, Will Dissly has been paying dividends, but he's a guy that is likely not going to play or maybe is iffy on the injury report. So we shall see, which could elevate Oronde Gadsden Jr. Which
it's bad enough we get killed by Mason Taylor.
So now Oronde Gadsden Jr. is on the way.
Yeah.
But here's the good news. The good news is they're going to be missing 3 starters on the offensive line, most likely. And ever since they've been missing their tackles, especially Joe Alt, because they started the season off without Slater. But Joe Alt quickly proved like he's a star and he can play left tackle. He went out with a high ankle sprain, and that offensive line is now not only leaky, but downright detrimental to Justin Herbert's numbers and his play. He's gone from the favorite as an MVP candidate in week 3 to 2 weeks later, he is the number 9 favorite MVP candidate. So he's gone from plus 300 to plus 1,600 in 2 weeks' time. Why? They can't throw it. They can't protect him. He's getting hit a ton. They give up the most quick pressure in the league. If there's one thing the Dolphins can do is get quick pressure. Now, do they get the quarterback? We shall see. But this kind of bodes well for Miami to at least stay in the game. They're going to need a supreme effort from the offense. But I think if they can get to Justin Herbert, they're on running back number 3. Okay. And neither of these guys are Hampton, who's a pretty good rookie. They could be helped here. And I think this can help them stay in this game to win it. Your thoughts on the Chargers' offensive line or lack thereof of offensive line?
Yeah, that's going to be a real problem for them because, the obvious is that the strength of Miami's defense, regardless of how it's been playing out, has been that front 7. I mean, it still is. These are the guys that know the most about playing is Zach Sealer and Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb and, Chop Robinson and the more that comes, the more we go on in the season, I think the more that front 7 is going to click with one another because of the amount of experience and know-how, even with the rookies being counted on. The one thing about us kind of going through the rookies and how they're struggling with Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips is, listen, the defense's problems are not embedded exclusively within that defensive line, within those rookies. That, or Zach Sealer having a tough year or anything like that's not it. That's really not it. I think that much like the Chargers defensive front is able to play seemingly above themselves because they have a strong secondary. We have a atrocious secondary, and it is causing our defensive front to play far below themselves.
Yeah.
And so
sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that Anthony Weaver had a telling. I don't know how you feel about this. Like, I hear it and I'm like, I don't know. But he said that the defense allowed 60 yards on 26 carries, allowed the rest of the rushing yards on the rest of the carries. So he's basically saying we're not completely clueless. We're just completely clueless on about 8 carries a game.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to sound like excuse making, and I get it, right? It's sort of like the classic, aside from that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you like to play? But it is a fair point to bring up. It is a point that I've wanted to bring up myself, because like I can go in that last game run by run, the big runs, the explosives, or 10 plus yard runs, and you can sort of track exactly what happened there. And it really is it's a smorgasbord of issues, but it's not all in that defensive front. In fact, on those runs, a lot of it is the missed tackling and, somebody trying to punch a ball out, or just, getting too aggressive, or just making the wrong read, or, somebody just forgetting a basic part of football, and reading this instead of that, reading, not reading the puller, and things like that. It really is just a bunch of mistakes. And when they stop making those mistakes, I wouldn't be surprised if all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, teams aren't really running the ball against us anymore. Okay, that's weird. I think that's going to happen at some point this year. I don't know if it's this week, because I happen to have a fair opinion of those running backs. I think that they can play. I don't know if that offensive line will be able to block us, but I do know that Jim Harbaugh is making some changes there with the center Bradley Bozeman, and I think that's about getting people who will execute their fundamentals, and obviously, as opposed to just being talented on paper. And if they do execute the fundamentals and we continue to not, on those individual plays, then we'll have another day where it's like, hey, 25 of those carries, we did an all right job. And then on the other 7, holy shit, so, I think that it is absolutely a fair point to bring up, because they're going to, as they go in the season, they're going to reduce those big mistakes. I mean, you're going to get into the flow of it. But it's definitely, I think that the Chargers will be vulnerable here for the most part, because I think that they're going to try and have Justin Herbert do things against our front 7. And our safeties, our secondary is going to be vulnerable on extended time plays. But if you try and go that route against our defensive front, don't be surprised Jalen Phillips brings you down. Don't be surprised Bradley Chubb brings you down. I think that it's definitely a thing. So, if they try to put the ball in that court, it is going to be interesting for the Dolphins.
Yeah. And you also have the whole thing about, coming east, and that's something that the Chargers just haven't done well. It's just not something that they do well, or the Justin Herbert era Chargers have done well. Like, they have a ton. They have losses here in Miami. They have losses in New England, losses to the Jets, losses in Carolina, losses in Atlanta. Like, it's a thing. It's an actual thing when teams from out west come east. Miami, the last time that they've lost a game from a team coming out east was against Seattle, and that was in 2020. So that's 5 years ago. Okay. And that was to Russell Wilson leading them on a comeback. I don't know if you remember that game. That was a game where Xavier Howard says, "You can't throw it over my head," and Russell Wilson says, "I'm going to throw it right over your head, 62 yards." Remember? And they lost by a touchdown. And of course, that was the Fitzpatrick-led Dolphins.
Right.
Yeah, Tua took over later on that season.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a thing. Like, it's always been a thing. And if you watch them when they run the ball, man, they're tough. And I actually like their weapons. One of them might be out, which is Will Dissly. I think that's a problem for them because he's cemented himself as a noticeable player for Justin Herbert, and Justin Herbert knows how to work with a tight end. Quentin Johnston, Keenan Allen, he's a Hall of Famer. Lat McConkey's a really, really good player. I could see this game going one of two ways. Really, really, really boring, and it's just a contest of which quarterback actually fucks up.
Yeah.
You know? I understand it's popular. Everybody's out there like, oh, this is Tua versus Herbert. This is gonna be fun. You know what? I think it is Tua versus Herbert. All right, like that's a possibility, and both quarterbacks have equal handicaps. I think. Okay, Justin Herbert's handicap is his offensive line can't block pressure, so Miami should have something going there. And Tua's handicap is that he's actually going up against a pretty damn good defensive coordinator in Jesse Minter, and a secondary that's actually pretty decent. So it could be that. It could be something as simple as that. Which quarterback can play clean, not allow, not take too many sacks, no turnovers, play a really efficient game. That team wins. Or it could just be both defenses are completely incompetent to their passing games, and we have ourselves a shootout. I'm leaning to boring. Where are you leaning to?
I am leaning toward boring, but I don't know. This is really hard to say because this is as much as last week was. I mean, it's just like you started the show with. As much as last week was the trap game, and this is sort of the opposite of the trap game. This is the one that we shouldn't be favored in. Nobody should say that about the Dolphins, the 1-4 Dolphins going up against the Chargers. I mean, we understand what that looks like, right? But the circumstances are good. The circumstances are really good in favor of the Dolphins. The thing that gives me pause is the Dolphins aren't good enough to where if the circumstances favor them, you can count on a victory. Sometimes you can just count on a close defeat because the circumstances favored them. And that's kind of where I come out on this. And, does it turn into a shootout? To me at home, yes, like it should. But if it turns into a mistake, a QB making a mistake over here and then a QB making a mistake over there and then a QB, like if it turns into that sort of thing, then obviously not that shootout. So I kind of want to, I'm torn in both directions there. And I think I will come out on the side of shootout though, and say, but ultimately the Dolphins lose a heartbreaker because they're good at losing heartbreakers. That's the way it is. Well, I see that I'm by myself over here, so I'll just keep talking. Why don't we talk about quarterbacks? We'll talk about draft quarterbacks here. Waiting for Alf to get back. Since we're all ready to move on in every way from the Dolphins, general manager, head coach, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinator, including the quarterback, even though he's not the biggest problem on here. We were just talking about this earlier, and the guys that I would really watch out for in the college football landscape, as we head into 2026, would include, Fernando Mendoza of Indiana. I think that this is a guy that profiles a lot like somewhere between Joe Flacco and Tom Brady. I think he's still young, so he's got legs to him, and he can gain yards with his legs. But really, this is a guy that uncannily makes everything look easy, which gives you a temptation to discredit him and say, well, I don't see him doing anything hard. But he does have the big arm that can break some rules on defense and force defensive coordinators and coaches to change how they play guys. They have to change how they disguise looks. They can't get away with as much. They have to change their spacing a little bit, and that's because he can, throw a low trajectory, real missile out there to the sidelines that at 50 yards that comes in as hot as a 40-yard throw, that sort of thing. So he's a big one to keep an eye on. Is he going to give Indiana 2 years, which most transfers often give their school 2 years? That's the thing to watch out for. But otherwise, there's a lot of NFL people that are raving about him. So you'd really watch him. We talk about Lenore Sellers sometimes, and he is kind of, to me, like somewhere between a Big Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Newton kind of clone. But I don't think he's going to come out this year. Ultimately, I think that the whole NIL landscape change is going to influence a lot of these guys, and they're going to stay in school, and I don't think he's ready for it. So, we'll kind of toss him out a little bit unless he gives us indication that he's actually going to stay in school. But two of my favorite guys, Talon Green and Jalen Daniels, Talon Green of Arkansas, Jalen Daniels of Kansas. I think those are some of the funnest players to watch because of their combination of just ridiculous arm talent, truly ridiculous, and the ability to run. The ability to run like a real athlete, like a real yard gaining ball carrier. Both of them have that in them. Jalen Daniels has the more serious medical history. And so he's already kind of in the territory of trying to, pull up on that a little bit and not do that as much, so that he doesn't get hurt. Which honestly does scare the hell out of me, coming from our experience with Tua Tagovailoa. So, that's the drawback to Jalen Daniels, is he is the most exciting guy to watch to me on tape. But at the same time, the most serious medical history, and still only like 6 feet tall, and probably 215, 220 pounds, something like that. Is he going to survive the NFL? That's a really big question. And I understand if Miami Dolphins fans don't want to even be asking that question about their next quarterback. And then you have Talon Green, who, on the other hand, is a huge dude and really big, really strong, can take punishment, can take tackles, gains a lot of yards on the ground, running the ball, but also just the talent. If I had to pick a guy who makes the plays that remind me of Josh Allen at Wyoming, and I was a huge Josh Allen fan at Wyoming, it's actually Talon Green. It's the way that he runs. He throws the ball on the run at a dead run, and when a guy scrambles and he's in trouble, a lot of times you're like, okay, you're expecting the throwaway, you're expecting a play to be dead at this point. Every now and then you see a guy that, in a situation where you would swear it's a throwaway, where you would swear that the play is absolutely dead, this guy nails it. And that's Talon Green. Jalen Daniels does that too, but Talon Green probably does it even a little bit more. And that was what Josh Allen was. Josh Allen at Wyoming was exactly that. So, he's a potential alien quarterback at the next level. But he's coming along. He's coached by Bobby Petrino. He's getting better fundamentals. He demanded from his coaching staff to get those VR headsets like Jaden Daniels of Washington, like he uses to get so good. And I think that this is a guy to watch. This is a guy that's he's a tremendous leader. Both of those guys are tremendous leaders, just good people, really good, smart people, tremendous leaders on their football team. I can't say enough about those guys. Being that sometimes Talon Green doesn't read the field as well as you would want to, and Jalen Daniels has that medical history. So otherwise, Jalen Daniels runs an offense that's almost like fingerprinted to Miami's offense with all the motion and formation changes and things like that. So those are guys that you would really want to look at. I'm not a huge fan of Garrett Nussmeier, not a huge fan of Drew Allar. I think that's those are guys that just continually let me down whenever I watch them. So yeah. Anyway, I think that there's probably more. I'm missing some guys like John Mateer. Is he going to come out? Is he not going to come out? John Mateer is a Jalen Hurts clone. He is right down to the impressive leg strength and ability to squat for his size, just the toughness and the leadership qualities, the not letting his team lose kind of leadership qualities on the field. The thing he doesn't have is very good touch, and it makes you wonder about kind of those layered throws in the middle of the field. Also allergic to checkdowns. But I mean, this guy otherwise he throws a bunch of missiles out there. He's got a rocket arm, and athletically he can do things. And then he's just like tough as nails. So John Mateer, I mean, he's on the midst of the type of run that if he completes it the way I think he could complete it, then yeah, he will come out. He will come out, and he will be at the top of the draft with probably Fernando Mendoza. And so you look at those guys. I think those guys are good. Some guys that I still need to look at. Ty Simpson. I have so many people in my ear about Ty Simpson. It's actually getting a little bit annoying, but I haven't really reviewed him. So what can I say? But a lot of people are talking about him. Jaden Mayava, I'm not sure that he's going to come out this year either at USC. He is on a second year since transferring there, but only his first year really starting. He still plays young, and I think that anybody that still plays young is going to be told, just stay in school, collect your money. There's no reason to rush this. You're seeing way too much in the NFL right now of these reclamation projects of guys that started out with a bad team, probably weren't ready, started out young, and then they just don't succeed, and they have to bounce around a little bit and then come back. Think about Baker Mayfield, think about Sam Darnold, think about Geno Smith, guys like that. Look at what Daniel Jones is doing right now as a reclamation project. You don't want to be that. You really don't want to be that, right? You don't want to be in that position. So I think that the scouts used to give the advice. They used to try and tell these guys, stay in school, just do it. Just be ready, when you do come out. And I don't think they were listening because there wasn't money. There was no money in it for them at the college level. Now there's money. There's serious money, and not just any money. There's serious money. So, so I think that has really tipped the scale toward these guys coming out, and so that's why when we're looking at these guys and like the question is, are they going to come out or not come out? You have to have pretty good reason to say that a guy's going to come out. I think if he's got eligibility left. So yeah, I think that some of those guys are not going to come out. You're talking about Sam Levitt, Arizona State. I don't think he's going to come out. Carson Beck is impressing me this year with the way that he's running that Miami offense. I think they're the best team in college football, and I think that it is really impressive. He's a very Matt Ryan-ish kind of guy, and so he is going to come out for sure. But listen, you got to know how he finishes the year, because if consistency is not his strength, what is? If it's not that he's deadly consistent and that he always knows exactly what he's doing and has the answer for whatever is presented to him by the opposing defense, if that's not it, then what is it? Because the physical stuff is not the same with him as the guys that we're talking about. It's not like Fernando Mendoza. It's not like Jalen Daniels or Taylon Green or Lenore Sellers or John Mateer, for that matter, or another guy, the guy out in Oregon, Dante Moore. He's another. He reminds me of Jordan Love, but he's not going to come out. He's too young. It's not going to happen. So so you got a lot of good guys to look at, and I think that if you can look past the medicals, and if Mike McDaniel were to survive in Miami this year, which arguable, but if he were, then the guy I would really I keep coming back to is Jalen Daniels, because he runs the same offense or a similar style of offense, and he has those leadership qualities. He has mastery over every kind of throw, including the layered throws. He throws with anticipation, which is a necessary thing for the Dolphins offense. And then you just look at it and it's like, I'm sorry, Tua, but this guy has far more physical ability than you do. And that's, that could be a thing that tempts them, particularly if the last thing everybody wants to see, which is Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel just continuing on another year. If that does happen, and Chris Greer, with the way that he kind of ignores injury histories, and Mike McDaniel, the way that he will stick with his style of offense no matter what, you can't help but look at Jalen Daniels and say, especially since with that medical history, you're not going to have to draft him in the first round, I don't think. That doesn't mean he's not going to be a great quarterback or he doesn't have a chance at it. He does have a pretty good chance at it, but he might not go in that first round anyway, and that's why I compare him a lot to like a Russell Wilson, and say that he could have that sort of career. But yeah, there's a lot of guys out there actually that are really interesting from a quarterbacking standpoint. If the Dolphins are indeed picking high and doing full reset, and we want to start that reset with the franchise quarterback, I think that they're going to be looking at John Mateer and Fernando Mendoza. That's my opinion. But if that's not the boat that they're in, if they get a new head coach, then that's when I start saying, well, what about Taylor Green? Because he might not have fit in the Mike McDaniel offense, but we change, but we're still not going for the quarterback at, in the top 5 of the draft. It's possible that Taylor Green doesn't really ascend that far in the eyes of everybody. And then you could start looking at him. But on the other hand, if Miami still has Mike McDaniel, and you're still looking for a guy who fits from that standpoint, that's when I would start to look at Jalen Daniels. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting quarterback class. A lot of people I hear, oh, this is a depressing quarterback class, it's not good. I don't think so at all. I see a lot of arm talent. And a lot of a lot of athleticism, the combination of the two. That's unusual. Sometimes you get that in guys that aren't really serious prospects, because they're just not very advanced, in what you need an NFL quarterback to do. And so there's going to be a cap on how far they can go, how high they can go in the draft. We're talking about some guys that can go pretty high, who have great arm talent and great athleticism. So it makes a really interesting quarterback class. But anyway, I'll stop there because that's my quarterback segment. But I think that as we go on here, we're going to keep an eye on that. And no matter what, Tua Tagovailoa is probably involved in the Dolphins next year because of the guaranteed money, and that's not going to go away. But there are some interesting guys that you can plug in behind him and start thinking about for the future. So anyway, that's it. We'll get to you next time on 3 yards per carry, hopefully with Alpha and not just me by myself. And hopefully we'll get a Dolphins victory this weekend, if that's what you're rooting for. At this point, some people are not. And hopefully we'll get Simon back from his European vacation. Well, no, he lives in Europe. What am I talking about? From his Italian vacation. All right. Cheers, guys.
And I'm back in after I got booted out of StreamYard. So we had to redo the end of this show. So I guess I'll just give my prediction here. I'm pretty sure that yeah, it's working. Yeah, it's working. So yeah, Chris should be on the way back in. So this is gonna have to be fixed. All right, we're back in. So I got put out. So you did a whole segment.
Yeah. I just went off by myself here.
All right. So I don't know. Yeah. What do you want to do with that?
You want to cut that separately and just
Well, I don't know.
hey,
The YouTube people get a bonus. That I'll put it on. I'll put it on the. Maybe I'll put it on vetted or something like that.
hey, who knows? Whatever.
Yeah. Maybe do something like that. All right. Let's end it right here. This is for
Mhm.
the audio part. All right. It's time to pick the game. Yeah. You kind of gave it away. You said heartbreaking loss. That's the way I was kind of leaning.
Oh, I didn't realize that you were going to go there.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning to, last second, field goal,
Mhm.
51-yard field goal, something like that. Hard fought 23-23 game. And then,
Yeah.
the Chargers kick one through the uprights to defeat the Dolphins. That's kind of where I was leaning. I think the Dolphins are going to have every opportunity to win this game. Every opportunity. If Tua plays
Oh.
well, look, there's a lot of ifs. If Tua plays well, they get some pressure on Justin Herbert. It was already hard to envision the Dolphins losing when Tua plays great, but he had a 120 passer rating last week and 3 touchdowns, and they lost. Okay, so it's a thing that can
Yeah,
happen.
that's rough.
So that's the way I was leaning. I guess I'll just stay that way. So yeah, Chargers kick a field goal to win this thing, 26-23, and Mike McDaniel will not be fired after that result. By the way. So, your thoughts on the game as we get out of here?
Yeah, I think that this is building towards as you suggested, a heartbreaking loss, because enough is going in favor of the Dolphins to possibly prevent the sort of shellacking that frankly would potentially get Mike McDaniel fired. I have a feeling, spidey sense tingling and what tacitly by some people that I trust, that even though the mindset right now is definitely not, we're going to fire Mike McDaniel imminently. I think that a loss at home, a bad loss, a getting pantsed kind of loss, that would just completely demoralize the fan base, result in empty seats. I noticed Jeremy Fowler, when he was talking about the situation this week, he mentioned something about the home, crowd and the fans and the empty seats and things like that. If you are embarrassing for your home crowd, then that is something that would work heavily against Mike McDaniel. So I think that if they do get embarrassingly beaten and just have a total meltdown, then Black Monday could be here already, because otherwise they're going on the road twice in the 2 weeks after that. And what are they going to look like in that Thursday night home game against the Baltimore Ravens on nationally televised with no crowd there and crowd just booing the team and things like that. So I think that if it goes that direction, you could see that, but there's enough working in favor of the Dolphins that I think it's they're just good enough to lose this game. And that's where I say a 27-24. I'm almost stealing your score. I was comfortably going to be the guy going under on the Dolphins. I assumed you were going to pick them, and I would be like, yeah, it's going to be that
Had they
close
won,
defeat.
had they won, by the way, had they won last week, I was prepared this week to say
You were
that
gonna-
this is that they were going to win this week and that they're
Yeah.
running off wins until they play the Ravens.
Building the confidence. Part of
Yeah.
me does want to say that, their backs against the wall as much as it was against the Jets. And until they start proving that when their backs against the wall that badly that they can't, they can't come back from it, then maybe I should keep going with the bounce back. Maybe they're just one of those teams that can't string together 2 victories. That could, we've seen a lot of those, and this does to profile somewhat like that. But so if the Dolphins do win, I think that's what it was, is like, hey, they're 1-4, truly back against the wall again. And they avoided that. They avoided it just like they did against the Jets, but then they won't string together 2, like it's sort of that sort of thing. In this case, I think it's going to be probably a close loss. Just good enough to lose situation, looking a bit snake bit.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you just check off the boxes, and I understand that they ran for 19 yards, but I was of the opinion that it's extremely hard for this team to lose when Tua plays kind of great. And I thought he was really, really good in this game. If you break down all his throws, okay, like, yeah, he sailed that one at the end to Jalen Waddle. That's like one of 2 bad passes all day. Like, come on, you can't survive 1 bad pass, then I'm sorry. You're
Right.
probably not very, very good. Okay. When you start losing with your quarterback playing very well, that's a problem. So I think that, look, this is going to be an important game because promises are always made. I'm pretty certain that after 2023, Stephen Ross looked at the team and was like, you know what? These guys are all right. They didn't lie to me. Like, they told me we were going to be pretty good. And the team was pretty good. And then, the excuse machine. Yeah, and I understand. Look, it's an excuse machine, but they're not excuses when it's reality. You miss 3 starting offensive linemen and every single edge player, you're not going to be a good team. I'm sorry. You're not going to be the same team that won 11 games. You're just not. So I think Stephen Ross looked at that and said, you know what? We had the number 1 offense. I understand the circumstances of what happened, but I look at that number that Barry Jackson was talking about. And I understand that people were like, hey, how come you're not including Palm Beach County? Well, we don't include Palm Beach County, all right? Just Dade and Broward. And 8.5 rating. And I understand that Boston is a big sports town, okay? The Patriots, when they're bad, and they've been bad, they won 4 games last year, Chris, okay? When they won 4 games last year, they're regularly getting 30s and 40s, okay? Meaning when the Patriots are playing on TV, 30% of all TVs in the Boston area are watching the Patriots.
Yeah.
The Dolphins used to be able to count on 25s, 30s. They got an 8.5, meaning 92% of TVs found better stuff to do on Sunday at 1 p.m. I think Stephen Ross really cares about that number.
He does. And he should.
And he should. Of course. That's the profile of your team. That's the profile of your team. Okay. Look, just go back to the numbers. The last time everything was hunky-dory around here was the victory against the Dallas Cowboys on Christmas. Everybody and their mother were watching that game. And it was a nationally televised game. Stephen Ross likes that. Above all else.
And that makes it be like, listen, if the solution was just winning, then 2023 would have handled it, right? And they did win 8 games last year, and then you could say, oh well, Tua missed the games and we missed, blah blah blah. But if the solution was just that, then I think that you wouldn't be getting as dire of a situation as you are right now. I don't think the solution is just winning. The fans are legitimately tired of seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
Over and over again. And that's when you got to pay attention. You got to be like, oh, maybe I do need to give them what they want, and because at the end of the day, this is an entertainment business. So
yeah, Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, you are competing with other teams in town, other things
Mhm.
that people like to do, and man, I saw that 8.5 number, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
like that's a bad number.
That's tragic.
Okay,
That's late
that's
night.
a
That's late night TV.
yeah. That's you know what that is? That is a obscure NBA game on a Tuesday
Yeah.
in
Right.
Miami,
hmm
and without the heat in it, without the
hmm
heat in it. Okay,
hmm
that's what that is. That's bad. I think he cares. I think he's watching. I think everybody's going to be watching on Sunday. I think it's important. A win will go a long, long way. A loss, how do
What?
they lose?
Not that long, boy. Not that long. There's a lot of season left. There's a
Well,
lot of
I
more
think a
chances to
win.
disappoint.
I think a win buys them a couple weeks at
Well, yeah.
least.
I mean, I don't think, like I said, I don't. If the win or even a close loss, I don't think McDaniel is getting fired, for example.
Yeah.
But I think we also really need to rethink what we're trying to accomplish with a midseason firing too. Like,
Yeah.
we want an interim coach to come in and give it like Anthony Weaver and give us a pop and a couple of wins, which happens
Mhm.
with interim coaches. We know it's kind of a tradition. We want that to happen. We're going to get, worse draft position. We're not going to be any better. We're not going to have anything to build on because that interim coach is not going to be the next head coach.
Mhm.
That's the reality of the situation. So what are we really trying to accomplish? What are we trying to accomplish with a midseason firing of Chris Greer even? Right?
Mhm.
Aside from bloodlust, it's bloodlust at this point. Let's be honest about what it is.
Mhm.
It's fan
Can I
bloodlust that
disagree?
wants
Can I
you
disagree?
you think that you fire Chris Greer, that's actually you're gonna do something.
I think you fire Chris Greer. I think you really do help your team. You know why? Because you'll get eyeballs on this roster for the rest of the season from all your prospective interviewees. Okay,
Mhm.
and if you do have a guy in mind, like a Champ Kelly or something,
But they're not going to go through that interview cycle mid-season.
no, but the guys are gonna know. Trust me. Like if Louis Riddick knows he's a candidate, he's gonna know, and he's gonna pay more attention for the rest of the season
Yeah.
to this roster. You know. So anyway, we shall see. I just get a little queasy, like Joe Philbin at the
Mhm.
trade deadline with Chris Greer at the controls. I just do.
Right. I mean, and you've gotta definitely you gotta quarantine him so that he can't do any more damage. Um,
I'm willing to allow him to trade Bradley Chubb because that's the no brainer, right?
mhm.
You know, but I would caution against the Jalen Phillips. You know, I would
Yeah, right.
caution against I don't know, maybe somebody who knows, maybe somebody wants to buy on James Daniels. He had a couple of bidders in free agency. I would
Mhm.
caution against that as well. Like, I don't want him doing any more damage. I would caution against the Zach Sealer and the first year of his deal. Unless it's attractive. But I don't want him touching this roster at all. Pretty much. Bradley Chubb, it's the no-brainer. Like, yeah, if you could get
Well,
anything for him,
your nightmare would be firing Mike McDaniel, getting a few wins out of Anthony Weaver, and then just
right?
keeping on with Anthony Weaver. Like that's
Yeah,
your nightmare.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that very much could happen because one of the reasons that you start winning more when you get rid of the coach, right, and you
Mhm.
go to the interim is because the same reason that you fired the guy, right? The
Yeah,
confluence of circumstances led to a really bad football team. That's why you fire a guy, right?
yeah,
So that doesn't tend to continue through the season. Some of those factors that lead to being that bad, to pushing into that sort of circumstance, or those circumstances pushing into that situation, um, they tend to abate a little bit as
mhm.
you go. And then here's this interim guy who gets to, well, James Daniels is now healthy. Austin Jackson is now healthy. Hey, we're
Yeah,
getting, and then you win a couple of games. And that's your nightmare. That's, you don't
yeah,
want that. You're already convinced that Anthony Weaver is just, bullshit. So,
yeah,
so I think that, that would be your nightmare. So at this point, like, the fans really got to ask themselves, like, be careful what you wish for about these midseason firings,
yeah.
because not always a good thing.
Yeah, and by the way, I am a hard no on any defensive coach for the next head coach. They don't win. They don't
Really?
win. If their name is not Bill Belichick or Pete Carroll 15, 16 years ago, they don't win. Okay? Look at it. Look at the last 25 years. All the guys that
Mm,
win are offensive coaches. and one special teams coach in John Harbaugh. But they're all offensive coaches. There's no defensive coaches in there, not named Bill Belichick.
I think it's so cyclical. It's just you're going to watch. There's going to be three new guys that win the Super Bowl.
And the hot guy right now, the hot defensive coach right now is Mike McDonald. And I don't know if you've watched him coach football games.
No, I would not.
He's weird. He does weird things, and that's a good.
He
roster.
does weird things,
and that's a good roster. Seattle's good. Okay, Seattle is. Yeah. I don't know if they're Super Bowl good, but are they playoff win good? Yes, I do believe so. I think
to me there were some immediate red flags there when he took over. But
yeah, my God,
actually
that Cardinal game. First of all, the Cardinals are not good. That's a fact. And that game was, my God, was it reminiscent of this Panthers game? They took a 17-0 lead and they sat on it with their $45 million shiny brand new quarterback, Sam Darnold. Yeah. And it was run, pass. Run, pass. And then he decided, you know what? Let's try run, 58-yard field goal. Not for me, Clive, as Simon Clancy likes to say.
Well, that was, but I mean, if you're talking about like the Arizona game this last week against Tennessee, or the Seattle game the previous week.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, Seattle, Arizona.
That's a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, not this weekend's debacle or whatever.
Yeah.
Shambolic enterprise. No, I think, but in all seriousness, a guy to keep in mind that keeps getting fronted at me with respect to that I know Steve Ross still thinks very highly of is Vance Joseph. So
he always has. He always has.
And he's always thought
he very famously.
Highly of him.
That's a fact. Very famously, he once told, I don't know what this says about Stephen Ross, but when he had Adam Gase, he said, "I have two head coaches."
Yeah, he did. And he had none.
Okay.
But Vance Joseph, I will say this, he might have been at the bad end of that 70-pointer that we dropped on the Broncos, but they have literally had one of the top, I don't know, 2 or 3 defenses in the entire NFL every game since then. If you just do all of that since then, all the NFL against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I just fear that it's going to be Michigan man Jesse Minter. I understand he's a fabulous defensive coordinator.
Yeah, could be.
But bright, shiny, brand new defensive coordinator. I don't want any more bright, shiny new. I want a mix of old head and new. I'm a Lane Kiffin guy. I already said it. I wanted him for Miami, for the Hurricanes when he was available.
I like Lane Kiffin a lot. I like
Lane Kiffin. I even liked his team when he was with the Raiders. Go watch those teams. I know it's been 1,000 years since then.
It's been 1,000 years. Those teams. He was like what, 29 years old or something, some ridiculous.
But those teams ran the football. They were aggressive. They looked like something. Although they didn't win, but they look like something. I believe he had Darren McFadden as his running back.
I think he could be a good candidate for Miami, and I think you would take the job.
Yeah, I think that's a lock. You offer him that deal, you offer him that job, I think he takes it. All right, we're going to call it right here. We went a little long, but the only reason we went a little long is because I was rebooting computers and internet
for like 20 minutes while I talked about quarterbacks to myself.
Yeah, so if you're watching this on YouTube, man, good luck to you. Okay.
Good luck.
I don't know what you're watching. All right.
2.0 speed. 2.0 speed.
For those of you that are listening on audio, this thing is going to seem seamless, professional, and beautiful. Great audio recording. Okay.
He's going to cut me out of it completely.
Yeah. So, all right. That's it. On Monday, we will talk about this game. Let's hope for the best. All right. How about a Tua tour de force and a Justin Herbert fourth quarter interception? How about that?
Always hoping for the best.
Can we have a celebratory show on Monday, especially against the Chargers and Justin Herbert? But till then.
All right, man.